Hello and welcome to A-Level Math. This is the second video in the series Straight Lines. In the first video, we covered the concepts of inclination and the slope of a line that passes through two particular points, and also the condition for parallelism and perpendicularism for two given lines. We also discussed what is the inclination between or the angle between two straight lines given that they are intersecting each other. So if you haven't seen the video, please go and click on the I button above. In this video, we will be discussing various conditions in which you can form the equation of a straight line. So we will be given some conditions and we will be required to find out the equation of the straight line which meets those conditions. We will take some solved examples. So first of all, let's start with what I think you probably must have been knowing. In your class 10th mathematics, you must have been asked to find out the graph of a certain equation. So this equation was definitely a linear equation. Suppose that the equation given was 5x plus 2y is equal to 3. So what you did was that you probably made y or x, one of them, as a subject. So suppose assume that you made y as the subject. So you had 2y is equal to 3 minus 5x, and then you got y is equal to 3 minus 5x divided by 2. Then what you might have done is that you made a box something like this and you took some points. So suppose here is the x and here is y. So if you take x is equal to 1, if you take x is equal to 1 over here, then you get y is equal to 3 minus 5, which is minus 2 by 2 minus 1. Similarly, if you take x is equal to say minus 1, so if x is equal to minus 1, then you get y is equal to 3 plus 5, which is 8 by 2, which is 4. In a similar way, you can find out more such points. Then what you did was that you plotted all of these points, 1 comma minus 1 minus 1 comma 4, all of these points somewhere, and then you drew the line passing through all of these points. So you might have noticed one thing, that the selection or the choice of these points were totally your discretion. Suppose that in the same examination your friend might have chosen some other points, but eventually you both got this same straight line. So this is the line that you both must have got. However, the selection of points must have been different because there are infinitely many points on this line. So it's of course obvious that your point selection may be different, but this line is unique. What I try to say is that this particular equation 5x plus 2y is equal to 3 represents one and only one unique straight line. So given any equation, there exists a unique straight line on the graph. Okay, this is the point that I needed to emphasize. And secondly, there are infinitely many points lying on this straight line, and you can find out any combination of x and y that satisfies this equation. Like 1 and minus 1 is one of those points, minus 1 and 4 is another combination. So there is actually infinitely many possible combinations that will satisfy this equation, and we say that all of those points lie on this straight line. Enough of recap, let's move on to the new thing. So initially what we were actually given the equation of the line, and we discussed about a few of its properties. So now what we will be given some conditions and we will be required to find out the equation of the line. It's just the reverse way. Initially we were given the equation and we found out some properties. Now we'll be given some properties or the characteristics of a line, and we will be asked to find out the equation of the line. So the first thing that you need to know is the point slope form of the equation. Okay, so why is this called as a point slope form? Always remember that to find out the equation of any line, you just need to have two information. Either you can have two points lying on the straight line, you can then give the equation, or you can have one point that is lying on the line, or the slope of the line. These two things that will also be sufficient, and there are many things, but always remember that there are just two things, either 2 points or 1 point and a slope. Two conditions are sufficient to get the equation of a straight line. Okay, so assume in the point slope form we are given 1 point. Suppose that I give you there is a particular point and I give you the slope of the line. So suppose that I tell you that this gives us the inclination or the slope of the line. So how are you going to actually find out the equation of the line? So assume that this point is x1 comma y1 and the slope is equal to m. Okay, so to find out the equation of a line, always remember that you have to take an arbitrary point x comma y on this line, and our final equation will be in terms of x and y only. This x1 comma y1 will always be given to you. Suppose you will be given that the line passes through 5 comma minus 2 or minus 3 comma 6 or anything. So this x1 y1 is something like that, 2 comma 3 or 5 comma 8, anything. And this slope will also be given to you. The slope is 2 minus 1 minus 1 by 2, anything like that. And this x comma y is something that we define. This x comma y is variable. So whenever you think of this x comma y, you have to imagine this point moving on this line. So this x comma y is actually variable, and our final equation will be in terms of x and y itself. Now how do we find out the equation is the main point. So first of all, I'll clarify this with the help of an example, and then again I will switch back to the previous slide because I don't want things to be too much theoretical for you. So let me make things a bit more easier for you. Okay, so now find the equation of a line passing through 4 comma 3 and having slope equal to 2. So let's quickly draw up a dummy graph. Assume that this is the point 4 comma 3 and the line is having a slope equal to 2. So m is equal to 2. So what I told you, that you take an arbitrary point x comma y on the line. Now what is the slope of these 2 points? Remember from the very first video on straight lines, we know that slope is given by y2 minus y1. Let me write down the formula once again. y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. For this case, we can have the slope equal to y minus 3 divided by x minus 4. So this is the slope of these 2 points, but the slope is known to us. The slope is actually equal to 2 because if you take the entire slope or just this much slope, it doesn't matter, it should be always equal. So you just see that we have got an equation, you just simplify it and we have got the equation of the line. So we simplify it, y minus 3 is equal to 2x minus 8. We take y on the other side, 2x minus y is equal to, or write down equal to over here. So 2x minus y is 8 minus 3, which is 5. So this is the final equation of the line. So you see how we find out the equation. In a similar way, suppose that this is the condition, you are given this point which acts like the 4 comma 3 in our case, and this m is given to be 2 over there. So in that case, our equation becomes y minus y1 divided by x minus x1 is equal to m. Then you simplify it and whatever you get is the final equation. So that's the particular example, and this is the general form. You just put down the values. If you want to mug things up, that's up to you, but I will never recommend you to mug up things. Always do from the very basics. It hardly takes a few seconds for the calculations, so never mug up things. Next question is the 2-point form. So remember what I told you, that there are many conditions. In the previous slides we saw that there was a point and a slope that was given, and now what will be given is 2 points on the line. So assume that I give you 2 points and I ask you to find out the equation of the line passing through these 2 points. So suppose that this point is given to you as x1 comma y1 and this point is given to you as x2 comma y2. So what I told you to find out, always take a point x comma y which is a dummy or arbitrary point that is supposed to be moving on the line, and then we can find out the equation. So again, let's start with an example and then I'll move on again to the theoretical aspect of it. Okay, so minus 1 comma 1 is this particular point, and 2 comma minus 4 is this particular point. So this acts as our minus x1 y1 and x2 y2, and we are asked to find out the equation of this line. So we take an arbitrary point x comma y on the line. Now you see that the slope of this entire line can be found out with the help of these 2 points. So let's quickly find out the slope. The slope is 1 minus 4 divided by minus 1 minus 2, which gives us 5 by minus 3. So this is the slope, and also if you take these 2 points you can also get the slope. So we find out 1 minus y divided by minus 1 minus x, and this slope should actually be equal to this slope, which gives us 5 by minus 3. So you cross multiply, you get minus 3 plus 3y is equal to minus 5 minus 5x. So 5x plus 3y is equal to or rather let's bring 5 on this side, so minus 3 plus 5 is plus 2 is equal to 0. So this is the final equation. So for our previous cases, when we are having x1, y1, x2, y2 as the points, so if you consider this entire extreme 2 points, that will give you the actual slope. So this is given by y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. And if you then take these 2 points or these 2 points as well, you can take any of these two, that's particularly your choice. You'll be getting the same answer in both of these cases. I take the guarantee for it. So if you take these two particular points, xy and x1, y1, then the slope is actually equal to y1 minus y by x1 minus x, and you then simplify, put on the values of these x1, y1, x2, y2, simplify, cross multiply, transportation, and you will be getting your answer. So it's as simple as that. Slope intercept form of the equation of a straight line. This is the third form. So eventually, if you see, we are mostly doing the same things, but there are different forms. So I will always prefer going through the very basics. So just that they're included in the syllabus, I have to teach you it that way. But believe me, if the very basic concepts are clear to you, there is nothing new in all of these forms. Slope intercept form. So what in this case will be given to you? Suppose that you are given a line. You will be given the slope m of the line, and you will be given the intercept, meaning the y-intercept. So assume that you are given that the y-intercept is c units. Y-intercept means that suppose a line intersects the two axes. So if it intersects the y axis here and x axis here, so this length is known as the x-intercept and this length is known as the y-intercept. So in our slope intercept form, this intercept actually means the y-intercept. Okay, so be clear on that when you are given a slope intercept form, you are given the slope and actually the y-intercept, which is suppose c units. So if I assume that the y-intercept is c units, then what about this point? This point is actually 0 comma c. Okay, because there is no movement in the x direction, you're not walking anything in the x direction, and you're walking c units up in the y direction. So now what we do, we take up an arbitrary point x comma y. So what is this? What is the equation? So first of all, you find out the slope of these 2 points x comma y and 0 comma c. What is it? It's y minus c divided by x minus 0. But this slope is known to us. The slope in any case remains the same. It is m. So y minus c by x minus 0 is m. Y minus c is equal to mx. So y is equal to mx plus c. Remember that this is the equation of the line in the point slope form. So m always gives you the slope of the line and c gives you the y-intercept. Okay, now this is the most important form of the equation. Why? Because this equation itself gives you the slope of the line, and that will be required in many cases. So suppose that I give you a line 3y plus 2 is equal to 5, and I ask you what is the slope of the line. So what you quickly do, you write down this equation in this form. That means you make y as the subject. So suppose I forgot the x, sorry. So y is equal to 5 minus 2x divided by 3 divided by 3. So whatever is with x gives us the slope. So what is here with x? Minus 2 by 3. Okay, don't say 2 by 3. Always remember that you have to also include the sign. So my m is equal to minus 2 by 3, and this is what gives me the slope of the required line. So I can say that the slope of this given line is actually minus 2 by 3. So remember that you will be doing this thing very often, very often, that you will be given a line and you will be using the slope of the line. So you quickly make y as the subject, and whatever remains with the x, the coefficient of x actually gives us the slope of the line. Okay, so that's what we are actually doing over here. Find the slope and y-intercept of this line. So let's quickly make y as the subject. 5x minus 4y is equal to 1. So I get 4y is equal to 5x minus 1. So y is equal to 5 by 4x minus 1 by 4. So whatever is with x gives us the slope, and whatever is the constant gives us the intercept. So my slope is actually 5 by 4. So slope is equal to 5 by 4, and intercept is equal to minus 1 by 4 units. So this completes my answer. Next, intercept form of the equation of a straight line. So okay, initially in the previous slide we were given one intercept, only the y-intercept and the slope, but here what we'll be given, we'll be given both the intercepts. So this is the x-intercept and this is the y-intercept. We'll be given both of these. So suppose that we are given that the x-intercept is a units and the y-intercept is b units. So that means this point is then a comma 0, and what about this point? This point becomes 0 comma b, and we have to just find out the equation, and we can quickly do it. You just take an arbitrary point x comma y, then you find out the slope of these two extreme points. So it will be b minus 0 divided by 0 minus a, and you find out the slope of these 2 points. So you can take either these 2 points or these 2 points. The answer will not vary, so I take the first two, 0 comma b and x comma y. So what is the slope? Y minus b divided by x minus 0. So I get, on simplification, b by minus a is equal to y minus b by x. Cross multiplication gives me bx is equal to minus ay plus ab. I take ay on the other side, so I have bx plus ay is equal to ab. I divide all of the terms with ab and see what I get. So I get x by a because b and b cancel out, plus y by b because a and a cancel out, is equal to 1. ab and ab cancel out to give 1. So this is the equation of the intercept form of the straight line. So suppose that if you are given that x-intercept is 5 units and y-intercept is 8 units, then x by 5 plus y by 8 is equal to 1. So just remember that x by x-intercept divide plus y by y-intercept is equal to 1. 1 is always there, is the equation of the intercept form of the line. Okay, let's quickly take up a question, but it asks us to find out the reciprocal. So I mean, it's asking you to do the exact opposite thing. So you're given the equation of a straight line and it is asking you to find out the intercepts, both the x-intercept and the y-intercept. So what you do, you somehow try to write down this equation in terms of x by a plus y by b is equal to 1. So what do? You take 5x minus 4y is equal to 2. This is the original equation. You divide all of these terms by 2. So the first thing that you have to do is just try to get 1 on the right hand side. That is why you divide with whatever is the constant. So I get 5x by 2 minus 4 and 2 cancel out to give me 2y is equal to 1. So we have done something. Okay, we have reached something. We have got the 1 on the right hand side. But what about this? We need x to be, we don't have anything with x and everything else on the other side. So we want to get rid of this 5 and somehow make this x independent. So what I can do is that I can write this as x by 2 by 5. Remember that this, I never told that this a always has to be an integer. It's you, probably you might have assumed it. I never said that. So a can be any real number. It can be decimal as well, no problem. So I push this 5 downside, and again I can write this 2y as y divided by half is equal to 1. So we are getting closer and closer to our final form. So we want x by a plus y by b is equal to 1. We have 1. We have freed the x and y, but there is one more problem. We need this sign to be plus. It cannot be minus. So what I do, I adjust this minus like this. So now what I have is that x-intercept is 2 by 5 and y-intercept is minus half. That means our some line will be something like x-intercept is positive, so it will be somewhere over here, and y-intercept is negative. So I'll be having it somewhere over here, and my line will be lying in the third quadrant, passing through the third quadrant like this. Okay. Alright, let's summarize everything and let's take up some questions which will cover most of these concepts. Okay. So show that these 3 points are collinear. So what I can do, if these 3 points are collinear, then their slopes will always be equal. What I mean is that if you take these 2 points and if you take these 2 points, the slope will always be equal. And if we can show that these slopes actually turn out to be equal, then these lines have to be collinear. So let's take these 2 points first. a comma 0 and 0 comma b, the slope is b minus 0 by 0 minus a. So on simplification it gives me b by minus a. This is the slope I get on having these 2 points. And if I take these 2 points, what do I get? I get minus 2b minus b divided by 3a minus 0. This gives me minus 3b by 3a, which gives me minus b by a. So minus b by a is coming out to be here, and minus b by a coming out to be here. Now don't say that is b by minus a and not minus b by a. What you can do is you can multiply with a minus 1 on both numerator and denominator, so you can actually get minus b by a. So b by minus a is actually equal to minus b by a. You just have to multiply with minus 1 on both numerator and denominator. So these two are actually the same thing, so they are having the same slope. So these 3 points are collinear. Now what is it asking? There is a second part of the question. Also find the equation of the line containing them. So we can take an arbitrary, so assume that these are the 2 points that are given to you, and you have to find out the equation of the line containing them. So what do? You just take some point a comma 0 over here, now b comma 0 comma b over here, and some arbitrary point x comma y. So we already know the slope turned out to be minus b by a, right? And if now you take these 2 points, so these 2 points slope will give you y minus 0 by x minus a. You cross multiply and simplify, you'll be getting your answer. It will actually turn out to be the same as the slope intercept form, because these are actually the same points a comma 0 and 0 comma b. So it will turn out to be the same as we discussed before, but you may try on your own as well if you wish. Okay, there are some things that I want to tell you. General form of the equation of a straight line. So the general form of the equation of the straight line is actually this: ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. You might have noticed that whatever straight line it is always having some features. First of all, we are having x and y. Highest power of x and y is both 1. So we cannot have something like x square plus by plus c. The highest power of x and y, you see, is actually 1. And that is why it is said to be linear in terms of x and y. So this is first feature. Secondly, if you see, all of these a, b and c are there. Okay, I mean that you can have it to be in the form by plus ax equal to minus c or whatever, but this is the general form. You need to have the linear terms. That means it should be linear in terms of x and y. The highest power is both 1. This is the basic feature of a straight line. Okay, whether a point lies on a given line or not, this point you need to understand. Suppose that I give you a particular point, suppose minus 1 comma 5, and I ask you this point, whether this point lies on this straight line or not. So what you'll be doing, you just put minus 1 in place of x and 5 in place of y. So what do you get? 5 times minus 1 plus 2 into 5 minus 3. If this thing turns out to be 0, that means if this point satisfies this equation, then this point is said to be lying on the line. Otherwise it doesn't lie on the line. So is it turning out to be 0? Minus 5 plus 10 minus 3 gives me 2, which is not equal to 0. So clearly this point doesn't lie on the line. Alright. Secondly, the slope of the line. We have already discussed that given the equation, how can you find out the slope? You just make y as the subject. So 2y is equal to 3 minus 5x. You divide by 2 on all the sides. So you get 3 by 2 and minus 5 by 2. So minus 5 by 2 actually gives you the slope of the line. And how can you find out the x and the y intercepts? You just write it down in the form x by a plus y by b is equal to 1. That means given this equation, 5x plus 2y, we can take 3 on the other side. 5x plus 2y is equal to 3, and then divide by 3 on all the sides to make the right hand side equal to 1. So what I have is x divided by 3 by 5 plus y divided by 3 by 2 is equal to 1. So my x intercept is 3 by 5 units, y intercept is 3 by 2 units. So these are some of the basic things that you can do when you are having the equation of the straight line at hand, and these are very basic things. You will be using them almost everywhere in the straight lines. So always try to remember these things. Next, find the equation of the perpendicular bisector of the line joining the points 2 comma 3 and 6 comma minus 5. So assume that there is a point 2 comma 3 and there is a point 6 comma minus 5, and I ask you to find out the perpendicular bisector of this line. So this is the line joining these 2 points, and I ask you to find out its perpendicular bisector. That means a line which passes through the midpoint of these 2 points, that means here, which is the midpoint of these 2 points, and also it should be perpendicular, that means forming an angle of 90 degree with the previous line. So how do we find out? So okay, there are a few things that you need to remember. First of all, let's try to find out this particular point. What is this point? So remember, we had discussed a section formula that if a particular point divides join of two lines in the ratio m and n, then we know that this point can be found out using the formula mx2 plus nx1 by m plus n. If you haven't, then please go and see the coordinate basics video, coordinate geometry basics video. So here my ratio is 1:1 because this is the midpoint, right? So what I do is just replace m and n with 1 and 1. So 1x1 and 1x2 doesn't matter anyway. So 1 plus 1 is 2. So if you want to find out the midpoint of any 2 points, what you just do is that to find out the x abscissa, which is the x coordinate, you just 2 plus 6 divided by 2. So you just do 2 plus 6 divided by 2. That will give you the x coordinate. And for similarly the y coordinate, it's 3 minus 5 divided by 2. So it's 3 minus 5 divided by 2. So you get the midpoint of it. So it's just that simple. You don't need to do all of those things. If the ratio is somewhat different, 2:5 or 1:3, then you might go by that way. But remember, if it's just the middle point, you add up the x coordinates, divide by 2, and the y coordinates and divide by 2. So you get 4 comma minus 2 by 2 minus 1. So this is the midpoint of these two particular points. So we have gone one particular point, and we have to find out the equation of this line. So we have got one point, but remember what I told you, that you need two conditions. As of now we have got only 1 point, but somehow we need to have second condition. The second condition is that this line is perpendicular to the previous line. So what is the slope of this previous line? We can find out the slope of this previous line using the formula y2 minus y1 by x2 minus x1. Remember? So what is the slope of these lines? 3 minus 5, which is plus 5, divided by 2 minus 6, which is 8 by minus 4, which is minus 2. Okay, so the slope of this line is actually minus 2. Now remember, in the very first video of straight lines, I told you that if two lines are perpendicular, suppose their slopes are m1 and m2, then the product of the slopes is minus 1. So the slope of the first line is minus 2. We want to find out the slope of the second line because they are perpendicular. So m2 is actually equal to 1 by 2. So this is the slope of the required line, and we have now the slope of the required line and also 1 point. So let's take an arbitrary point x comma y on this line, and we can find out the equation of line, because what is the slope if we consider these 2 points? It is y minus 1, which is y plus 1, divided by x minus 4, which gives us half. That should be the slope of the line. You just cross multiply, simplify, write it down in the form of ax plus by plus c is equal to 0, and that gives you a required answer. Okay, this is the last question probably, I guess. Yes, it is. So if these are the 3 points of the vertices of a triangle ABC, so 2 comma 1 minus 2 comma 3 and 4 comma 4. So 2 comma 1 is somewhere over here, and suppose minus 2 comma 3 is somewhere over here, and 4 comma 4 is somewhere over here, and these 3 points form a triangle. Forgive me for my very dirty diagram. So these 3 are the vertices of a triangle. Then find the equation of the median through C. So this one was A, this one was B, and this one was C. So the equation of the median will be this, because it passes through the point C. Okay, so this is the median. So the feature of, or the definition of median, is that it joins this particular vertex with the midpoint of the opposite side. So suppose this is the opposite side to C, this is the midpoint, let's call it D, and we have to find out this equation. Okay, so how do we find it out? It's pretty much easy. We just now discussed that to find out the midpoint, we just need to do x plus the x1 divided by 2, and y we added up and then divide by 2. So let's quickly find out what is d. D will be, so d will be actually equal to 2 minus 2 divided by 2 and comma 1 plus 3 divided by 2. So we get d to be equal to 0 comma 2. So we have found out the point D. Now we have one point, this 0 comma 2, and this point 4 comma 4. We need to find out the equation of this line. So it's pretty much easy. We can take any point x comma y. We can find out the slope of these 2 points, and we can find out the slope of these 2 points. We can equate them, they will be equal, and we just solve them, write it down in the form ax plus by plus c is equal to 0. I mean cross multiply, transport, and then you can find out the answer. So I'm leaving it to you as an exercise. It's very much simple. It's just finding the equation given the 2 points. So you're having these 2 points 0 comma 2 and 4 comma 4. You just need to find out the equation of the line passing through these 2 points. So I won't be doing it this one. Let's move on to the second question, the altitude through B. So let's quickly draw up these points again. So this is 2 comma 1 minus 2 comma 3 and 4 comma 4. What is the altitude through B? This is A, this is B, and this is C. Altitude means right angle to the opposite side. Okay, so again I'm giving you the hint. So it's exactly the same question as we did the previous one. So what you do, you find out the slope of this line, which you can find out using the formula y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. So suppose that you get the slope to be equal to 5. Then the slope of this line will be minus 1 by 5. Remember why? Because we know that m1 m2 is equal to minus 1. So if you put m1 to be equal to 5, so 5 m2 is equal to minus 1, so m2 is equal to minus 1 by 5. So there is a very much shortcut. What you do is just reciprocal of it and then change the sign. So suppose that if this slope turns out to be actually equal to minus 3, then the slope of this will be 1 by 3. Reciprocal, change the sign. Reciprocal, change the sign. Reciprocal, change the sign. You remember this formula, okay? It will help you do things faster. You don't need to always write this m1 m2 is equal to minus 1 and those stuffs. Okay, so what you have is the slope of this line, and from there you can find out the slope of this line. So you have the slope, suppose that the slope turns out to be 3, and you have the point minus 2 comma 3 which also passes through this line. So what you do, you take an arbitrary point x comma y. So you take this slope minus 2 comma 3 and x comma y will give you the slope which will be equal to 3, and that's your answer. So actually you'll be doing y minus 3 by x plus 2, and then whatever you get as the slope, instead of 3, whatever you get as your slope, you put it over here, cross multiply, and it gives you the answer. That simple. Okay, and finally we have the third question. So the right bisector of the side BC. So what is the right bisector of side BC? So suppose these are the 2 points for B and C. The right bisector of BC is exactly the same thing that we discussed in the previous question. That means the line that bisects BC and perpendicularly bisects BC. So you have these 2 points B and C given. You find out its midpoint using x1 plus x2 by 2 and y1 plus y2 by 2. So you can find out this midpoint, and you can find out the slope of this line, because it will be reciprocal and sign changed of this slope. So if you find out the slope of BC, then you can find out the slope of this line as well, reciprocal and change the sign. So you have the slope, you have this point, you can easily find out the equation. I know that I rushed through these kind of questions, but I actually want you to think and practice on your own and then try it out. So that's the only way in which you will learn. So thanks a lot. So try to study hard and solve the examples and exercises that are given in a book, and please study harder and smarter, and thanks for bearing with A-level math. Bye bye, see you next video.